Hey there, welcome to another video. This time I'm going to show you how to add and subtract positive and negative integers. I've got three different methods that I'm going to show you how to add and subtract. And also I did want to point out that I do have some more math videos at MyTutoringBee.com if you're interested in looking at those. And I'm also offering online tutoring, so message me if you are interested in finding out more about that. But as I said, I've got three different methods. So here are the times in case you wanted to jump around a little bit. But let's just go ahead and start with the number line method, which is our first method. I've got all the same digits down here in these problems, but just different variations of positive and negative numbers. So that way I could just show you how to use these. But let's start off with this first one. So we're going to start with a positive 2 on our number line. And this is just 2 plus 5, so this looks like any normal addition that we see. And whenever we're adding, we're moving to the right on our number line. So as you can see, I've moved 5 spaces over to the right, and that's going to put me at a positive 7. So 2 plus 5 equals 7. But let's go on to the next one. This one does have a negative integer. So we're going to start at negative 2 this time. And we're still adding 5, so it's still a positive direction. We're just starting at a different point on the number line. So we're starting at negative 2, but we're still moving to the right 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this just puts us at a different position on the number line when we end up at positive 3 this time. So again, you can see, when you're adding, you're moving to the right. When you're subtracting, like in this next problem, we start at the beginning number, which is a positive 2, but this subtraction tells us now to move to the left. So on my number line, I'm just going to start here at positive 2, and this time I'm going to move 5 spaces, 5 units over to the left, and that's going to put me right here at negative 3. And normally I tell my students you can't subtract a larger number from a smaller number, but when they're starting to learn about positive and negative integers, you can see how it crosses over that 0 on the number line. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Still again, we're subtracting 5, but this time we're starting at negative 2. So here we are at negative 2 on my number line, and we're still subtracting, so we're still going to the left. So we still move 5 units to the left. So that's going to put us at a negative 7. So you can see how the number line really helps you visualize exactly what these equations will end up being. Okay, so down here in this group down here, I've got a little bit different situation. I've got 2 different signs kind of stuck in the middle of all of these numbers. So I'm going to show you how to deal with those first, and then you're going to just use the same methods as I did in the previous 4 problems. So right here I've got a plus sign and a minus sign. So what I really need to do is I need to combine those together. I'm going to just circle those both together. And my rule for this is when I've got 2 opposite signs like I do here, a plus and a minus, that really gives me a minus 5 or minus whatever your second number is. So opposites, I'm just going to write this little note down here. Opposite means subtract, or it gives you a negative sign. So really this is 2 minus 5. I'm just going to rewrite that underneath here, and you can see we've already done a problem exactly like this just above right here, and it gave us negative 3. But I'll go ahead and show you on the number line so you can see it again. We start at positive 2, and then we minus 5. That means we go down 5 units to the left, so we're subtracting 5, and that puts us at negative 3 again. Okay, here again we have our opposite signs. We've got a plus sign and a minus sign, so I'm going to just circle those and make that a subtraction sign. So we've got negative 2 minus 5, and again I'll show you that. Let me clear this. I'll show you that on the number line. We just start at negative 2. We go down 5 units down to negative 7, and as you can see just above that we did the same thing. So with these, you just always have to combine those 2 symbols before you start actually adding or subtracting. Now here I've got two of the same signs. They're both negative signs, but I still need to combine them together and just make them into one sign. So whenever we have the same signs, then that's going to be add, or a plus sign. You're going to replace that with a plus sign. So this really means 2 plus 5. I'm just going to rewrite that. And the reason that is because when we subtract, it's telling us to go to the left, but then when we subtract a negative, it's telling us to do the opposite. So that's why it winds up being a plus for us, because it's saying do the opposite of the opposite. So this is, again, really just 2 plus 5, and we've done that one up here. So let me show you that on the number line again. Start at positive 2 and go up 5 spaces to a positive 7. Here we've got the two negative signs again, so I'm just going to combine those. That means plus. We're just starting with a negative 2 here, so we start with negative 2 plus 5. We've already done that one up here. I'll show you on the number line again right here really quickly. Negative 2 plus 5 more will put us again at a positive 3. So that's how you use a number line to add and subtract. This works really well for beginning stages of learning positive and negative integers and how to add and subtract them. But let's go on to my second method, which is using counters. So in this method, I'm going to show you how to use it without having to draw out a number line each time. And I'm going to color code this a little bit for us just to help make it a little bit more visually clear. So I'm going to use this blue color for all of my positive integers. And then for my negative integers, let's use red. So I'll just write this up here just to give me those notes. All right, so let's start with our first one. Again, we're starting with 2 plus 5, which is you know, a typical addition problem that we've all seen. But I'm going to show you how to do it with the counters. Really, what I tell my students is don't think of it as adding and subtracting. Think of it as combining. So really, this is a positive 2 since we don't have anything written out in the front. That's a positive. And then this addition sign needs to go with this 5. And the reason I circled this is I want to show that this is a positive 2 and a positive 5 that I'm combining together. So now let me put my, my counters up here. So I'm just going to write 2 plus signs above the 2, and then I'm going to write another 5 plus signs above the 5 to represent a positive 2 and a positive 5 being combined together. So now you can see I've got all of these positives up here at the top. If I count all of those up all together, then there are 7 of them. So that gives me a positive 7 for my answer. Okay. So now what do we do with the negative numbers? Well, I need my red to show my negative sign. So above the 2, instead of writing, you know, the plus signs like I did before, I just need 2 negative signs. And again, that plus goes with the 5 to represent a positive 5. So I'm going to use 5 plus signs above this number. Okay, so now I've got different signs. So there's something else. There's another little step that I need to do with this one. Whenever you have a positive and a negative together, they actually cancel each other out and just kind of go away. So I'm going to circle these two and then cross them out because they just cancel each other out. And these two cancel each other out. So really I'm just trying to figure out what I'm left with. Well, now I've got these 3 positives that are left over, so that tells me that my answer is a positive 3. So let's go down here. Let me get my blue color for my next one because I've got a positive 2. This is really, remember, there's nothing out here in the front, so I know it's positive. So I'm going to write 2 pluses above that. And then this minus sign goes with my 5 to show that it's a negative 5. So I need, let me just circle that so you can see that goes together. So I need 5 negative signs above this. And this is just really easy to do on your paper. Just to, you know, kind of give you a visual. So again, this positive is going to cancel out with one of these negatives. this positive is going to cancel out with one of these other negatives. So all those kind of go away, and what I'm left with are these three negatives. So my answer is -3. All right. So now this next one, I've got a -2 and a -5. Remember, think of it as combining. We've got a -5 and a -2 that I'm combining together. So let's use our counters. Well, I've got 2 negatives. There's 1, 2. And then I've got 5 negatives. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put all those together. We don't have anything to cancel out in this one, so we just count them all up. Kind of like my positive 2 plus 5 over here, except now I've just got a bunch of negatives. So I add those all up, and it's -7. All right, down here, we've got those 2 symbols that are together there in the middle. So the same rule applies as before. I need to get rid of those and just turn it into one symbol just to make my life easier. So same rule applies when I've got 2 opposite signs. I'm just going to circle those. A plus and a minus combine together to make a minus sign. So I've got a +2 and a -5 that I'm combining together. Well, now this one looks just like the one that I did before. I've got 2 positives, and I'm going to combine it with 5 negatives. Change my color. On these 2 positives are going to cancel out with 2 of these negatives, so I'm just going to circle those, cross them out. What am I left with? 3 negatives. So my answer is -3. Okay, here again, I've got 2 symbols together. I need to get rid of those. So I'm just going to circle them and change that into a negative because they're opposites. So really, if I rewrite this, it's -2 and a -5 that I'm combining together. I always encourage my students to rewrite them underneath, especially when they're first learning it. So here's my counters for each of my integers. I don't have anything to cancel out. It's just like this one up here, so I'm left with a -7. Okay, this next one, now I've got 2 of the same. I've got 2 negatives bunched up together, so that's a positive. So really I've got +2 and a +5 that I'm combining together, and we know that that equals a +7. Here we have again 2 negatives that are together, so that's going to turn into a positive. So I'm going to rewrite this as a -2 combined with a +5. I'll go ahead and do my counters on this one just so that you can see, since we're going to have to cancel out here. So here's my 2 negatives. And then I've got 5 positives. And 2 of my negatives are going to cancel out with 2 of my positive signs. So I'm going to just circle those and cross it out, get rid of it, and I'm left with these 3 positives. So my answer is +3. So these 2 methods work really great for smaller numbers like 2 and 5. But what about numbers that are bigger? Like let's say I have 26 minus 57. It's going to take forever to write out a bunch of little positives and negatives. So that's where my method 3 comes in with substitution. Now I've got the same numbers here, but I am going to show you some examples with the larger numbers too. I just want to use these same ones to show you how this method works. So basically the first rule is if your integers have the same sign, you add them and then use the same sign as both of the integers. Let me show you what I mean. This is really a +2 and a +5. They both have the same sign, so I'm just going to add 2 plus 5 is 7, and then both of my integers are positive, so that means this 7 is positive. Okay, let me show you down here. I've got the same 2 signs. I've got a -2 and a -5. So I'm really just going to add 2 plus 5 is 7. However, both of my integers are negative, so my answer is going to be negative. Okay, I'll show you how that works with a larger number, because this is really where this comes in handy when you start doing these larger numbers. So a negative 26 minus 57. So those are both negative numbers. I've got the same sign. So really, I'm just going to think in my head, okay, what's 26 plus 57? I just want to know what those two are combined. So 6 plus 7 is 13, and then that's 8. So I've got a value of 83. However, both of my integers are negative, so it's really a negative 83. Now how about for opposite signs? For opposite signs, you want to subtract and then use the same sign as the larger integer. I'll give you some examples of that. You might want to pause this video too and write down these notes if that might help you. But okay, let's look at this problem. I've got a negative 2 and a positive 5. Those are opposite signs for those integers. So I'm just going to kind of think in my head 5 minus 2. I just really want the difference of these two integers. So 5 minus 2 is 3. However, my larger integer, the one that has the most weight, I guess you could say, is the 5 because it's a positive. So my answer is going to be a positive 3. I'll show you with this one as well. I've got a positive 2 and a negative 5. So again, I've got opposites, so I'm just going to subtract 5 minus 2. I just want the difference between these two, which is 3. But now this time my 5 is negative. So that means my answer is going to be negative. Think of it like with those counters before. I have more negatives than I do positives, so it makes sense that my answer is going to be negative. And I'll show you again with the larger numbers with these with opposite signs. So let's say I have a positive 26 and a negative 57 that I'm trying to combine. Well, I just want to kind of flip those numbers around a little bit, and I want to find the difference between them. So I'm just kind of thinking in my head, what's 57 minus 26? Again, I just want the difference between these two numbers. Well, the difference is 31. However, my 57 has the most weight to it, so it's negative, so my answer is going to be negative. And I'll show you the other way too. What if I start with a negative 26 and a positive 57? Whoops, positive 57. There we go. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to start with 57 minus 26 because I want the difference. So again, it's going to give me 31. However, now my answer is weighted more towards the positive side. So my answer is going to be a positive 31. So that works for when you have opposite signs. So now let's get down to these bottom 4 problems where we have to combine those signs that are in the middle again. Same rules apply. I've got 2 opposite signs here. So those are basically just I'm going to cancel those out and just make my life easier and turn that into a subtraction sign or a negative sign. So this is really a positive 2 and a negative 5. Excuse me, I've got 2 opposite numbers. So I want to think in my head subtract. So 5 minus 2 is 3. However, in this particular equation, the 5 is the negative number. So my answer is going to be negative. Okay. I only use this method with my older kids that really have a good understanding with those other 2 methods first. I don't suggest jumping right into this method if you're first learning about positive and negative integers. Okay, so I've got 2 of the same sign, so I'm really thinking add with these 2 numbers because I've got a negative 2 and a negative 5. So I'm adding those to give me 7, but both of my integers are negative, so my answer is going to be negative. Here I have 2 negatives, so that's going to turn into a positive. Positive 2, positive 5. Same signs, I'm going to add, and then my answer is positive because both of my integers are positive. And then finally, we've got, again, 2 negatives, make a positive here. So I've got a negative 2 and a positive 5. Opposites, think subtract. That's going to be 3. And then my 5 has the greater weight to it, so my answer is going to be positive. So I hope that helped you out. Let me know what you think.